Tension hung heavily in the air as the Gork's War Council convened in the towering chambers of Cordic Prime. The obsidian walls gleamed beneath the luminescence of the planetary defense grid, a bold demonstration of the Empire's uncompromising dominance. Yet, within the grand space, uneasiness loomed like a shadow. The silence was broken by the presence of an extraterrestrial figure, the elderly veteran, General Tasser. His delicate blue scales, once vibrant, had dulled over time, marked with scars from long-forgotten conflicts. His once proud crest now drooped, evidence of years weighed heavily by battle. Though revered, Tasser was largely dismissed by the younger, ambitious commanders who saw him as a relic, more of a cautionary tale than a fountain of wisdom. "Express your thoughts with clarity," demanded General Commander Vien Bardvan, his tone brimming with impatience. Unlike Tasser, Vien was youthful, brash, and hungry for glory. His crimson armor gleamed as his fiery eyes challenged the elderly general. "We have all day," he declared, his voice laced with mockery. Tasser took a deep breath, his voice calm yet firm. "You think humans are weak, chaotic, undisciplined, and divided," he began. He paused as ripples of derisive laughter spread across the chamber. "That belief will be your downfall." Vien leaned back in his seat, folding his arms. The assembly chuckled as he sneered. "Your obsession with them is amusing, old man. They're nothing more than an annoyance, a pest to be swatted aside." "You say this because you haven't faced them," Tasser replied sharply. His gaze swept the room, stopping briefly on Lieutenant Arden, a younger officer who shifted uneasily under the weight of the discussion. Tasser continued, his tone steady. "3 cycles ago, I encountered them at Darren 5. We believed our fleet to be unbeatable, an invincible armada. Yet the humans—" He paused, his claws tapping against the table, the sound echoing like distant gunfire. "They fought not just with desperation but with cunning. They turned their weaknesses into strengths, their machinery into weapons. When surrounded, they set traps. Their will to survive was unmatched, pure, and terrifying." The room grew quiet. Even Vien's sneer faltered, though he scoffed. "And yet, here you are, alive to tell the tale. Hardly sounds like the work of a truly formidable foe." Tasser's eyes burned with quiet defiance. "I survived because they allowed me to. They left one ship intact, mine, as a warning not to return." The chamber fell silent. Even Vien shifted uneasily before masking his discomfort with a dismissive wave. "A convenient tale, General," Vien said. "But we, the Gork Empire, are the most powerful force in the galaxy. Whatever strategies those humans used against you, they won't work against us." Tasser shook his head, his voice heavy with grief. "They don't fight for resources or conquest. They fight to survive, and those who fight to survive don't fight fair." Lieutenant Arden leaned forward, frowning. "If what you say is true, General, then why not propose diplomacy? Surely conflict can be avoided?" Tasser's eyes softened. "Why should they trust us? We've given them no reason to. All they've seen is our hostility, our arrogance. They will not negotiate from a position of vulnerability." Vien slammed his fist on the table, shattering the tension. "Enough of this defense nonsense. The invasion is decided. Humans are but an obstacle to our growth, a challenge meant to be crushed." Tasser's shoulders slumped, though his gaze remained defiant. "You're making a grave mistake, one that will cost us dearly." Vien sneered. "Perhaps we'll see, old man. Perhaps you've simply grown too soft to understand what it takes to win a war." The chamber erupted into murmurs as the council prepared to adjourn. Arden lingered, glancing back at Tasser. "Do you truly believe we can't defeat them, General?" he asked quietly. Tasser met his gaze, his voice filled with conviction. "It's not about whether we can win, Lieutenant. It's about whether we can survive." Arden nodded slowly, uncertainty flickering across his features. Without another word, he turned and left. Tasser stood alone in the empty chamber, memories of Darren 5 flooding back. He closed his eyes, hearing the echoes of screams and the heat of fires consuming his comrades. As the doors shut behind him, he muttered to himself, "I warned them. May the gods have mercy on the human colony of New Horizon. Once a beacon of progress and innovation, smoke now filled the air. The once thriving cities lay in ruins, their shimmering towers reduced to rubble. The Gork attack was swift and merciless, shuttles bursting midair, their relentless roar drowning out the cries of fleeing civilians. On the Gork's command ship, Weapons Commander Va observed the destruction with a cruel grin. "This will teach them a lesson," he muttered. Behind him, Lieutenant Arden stood uneasily, Tasser's warnings echoing in his mind. Yet he remained silent. On the edge of the colony, amidst the chaos, a lone human communications officer stumbled through the debris. With trembling hands, he activated a battered transmitter, sending out a simple yet dire message. "New Horizon has fallen. Evacuation is no longer an option. This is a warning." Aboard the human ship Death's Horizon, the distress call was received. Captain Marcus Johnson stood on the bridge, his steely gray eyes narrowing as the message played. A veteran of countless battles, Johnson's calm demeanor masked the weight of every decision. He turned to Commander Owen Price, his voice firm. "Prepare the fleet. We show them what it means to provoke humanity." The crew sprang into action, their determination palpable. Humanity's response was swift and precise, striking Gork supply lines and outposts. They turned the tide of war. The Gorks, unaccustomed to such cunning and resilience, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. As the Gork's fleet regrouped, preparing for a massive offensive, Johnson stood resolute. "Let them come," he said coldly. "This will be their final mistake." The stage was set for a clash that would decide the fate of both empires. In the vast expanse of space, humanity prepared to prove its strength, to show the Gorks the true cost of underestimating them. "This is the main defensive fleet of humanity," Johnson said, his voice a combination of self-assurance and rage. "No more. No more games. We'll destroy the skirmishes." Lieutenant Arden stood there now, a sense of gravity hanging in the air. Discreetly observing the fleet by his side, gradual progress was being made in the direction of the human positions. There was no doubting the overwhelming strength of their troops, but a knot of discomfort tightened in the humans' chests. Their resourcefulness and unpredictability were being demonstrated, yet something felt off. On the other hand, the quiet seemed unsettling now. On the Gork side of the battle, Captain Marcus Johnson noted the Gork fleet staring, calculatingly. The formation of the enemy was flawless, a strength that could not be disputed. Yet he saw it for what it was, a strict system that begged to be exploited. Beside him, Dr. Heath Mercer examined the actions of the adversary with the vigor of a man looking for fissures in an unbreakable wall. "They're committing everything," Mercer said, his voice tinged with a mix of appreciation and scorn. "Haughty bastards believe sheer numbers will prevail." Johnson nodded in an unreadable manner. "They've still to learn. Let's impart the lesson." The human ships did not make the first move. Instead, through Mercer's team's digital ether, a group of cyber warfare experts persistently laboring in the background, a string of precise attacks was unleashed against the systems of the Gork fleet. Targeting arrays malfunctioned, communications failed, and a cascade of false alarms caused confusion among their members. On the flagship of the Gork fleet, Vienne, the commander, slammed a clawed hand against the console. "What is happening?" he bellowed as technicians scrambled to restore order. "Interference," Arden said in a strained voice. "They're interfering with our systems." "Adapt," Vienne snapped. "Use firepower to overrun them." But the humans didn't wait. Small, nimble strike units emerged from the shadows of asteroid fields and clusters of debris. These units struck the fleet's supply ships and auxiliary boats with brutal effectiveness. The Gork forces, who were used to directing conflicts, found themselves caught off guard by guerrilla tactics. Each engagement cost them resources. Arden's morale wavered as he watched the chaos unfold. Turning to Vienne, he said, "This is not a battle we were ready for." Vienne's blazing eyes burned with rage. "You sound like a Tasser." "This is not a retreat, Arden, not yet," Arden replied, his voice steady despite the stress. "This is about survival, Commander. Pride will destroy us." But Vienne refused to listen. He ordered the fleet to rally for a final, desperate assault. The humans, however, were prepared. Johnson had foreseen the maneuver and laid a trap. The Gork fleet marched directly into a human ambush. Ships surrounded them, cutting off escape routes. On the bridge, Johnson gave the command to strike the final blow. "This is the void of triumph," he said solemnly. The battle didn't end with a dramatic explosion, but with the grim discovery of the Gork fleet's flagship, once a symbol of their indomitable strength, floating powerless. Its systems were offline. And as the debris settled, Mercer turned to Johnson. "They only have one choice if they want to survive," he said. Johnson nodded, his face bleak. "If they don't, they'll leave us no option but extinction." The battle was over, but the war had just begun.